You will, you got the order correct?
Yeah, it's gonna be Jennifer and Saul's
Okay.
who's first with Grace.
So Jennifer's gonna go first. Okay. So the first question would be just introduce yourself, tell us why you're running for office, and you know what you kind of hope to accomplish, and we'll go from there.
Can I stand up?
Yeah, perfect. You can stand up. Yep.
I'm a standing and talking kind of person. So anyway, my name is Jennifer Cassidy. I have been a resident for Grain Valley for approximately 22 years. Although we moved out to Grain Valley because my daughter had special needs, and we were ranked number 3 in the entire state of Missouri for their special needs program. And she really received such a wonderful education. My husband is Dan Cassidy, and I also have another son. He's 30, and he still calls his mom, which is, I love that. But one of the reasons that I am running is not only because I care about this community so much, that I've seen us grow. I mean, I lived in Valley Woods when it was actually a golf course, because I live on a street called Gulfview Drive. There's no view of a golf course at all. There's a view of I-70, which is fine, but you know, we just absolutely loved our neighbors, longtime neighbors. They've been here longer than we have, and we know all of our neighbors. And again, it was just one of those things where we felt safe out here. We felt that, I don't believe, Mayor Todd, you may have just been elected at one point, but I started my visitation of Grain Valley back when I worked in telephones, and when we put the telephone system in the old police department in City Hall, it was actually wonderful to get to know everybody out there. So I didn't have any ambitions really about running for politics, but one of the things that I will tell you, that having a child with special needs and having to navigate the system in Missouri, we've seen a lot of things change over the course of 23 years. The things that that I am passionate about is my public service record. It's funny, I just was talking about with Joe Nicola that I remembered him just 2 days ago, how I knew him from a long time ago, and our connection to City Union Mission, Bikers with a Mission, and things like that. So back when I was 16 and all the way up, I graduated from a Christian school in Olathe with full honors and a full ACT scholarship. So attended Cade University, although my parents really wanted me to go to Bob Jones, and I just wasn't, you know, I was a high school kid that really didn't want to keep doing that. But on the other hand, I felt that it was a wonderful value to my background, not only as a service-oriented person, but I really do feel like that kind of got me started when my daughter was born, to move my focus over to the
All right.
special needs.
That's time.
Okay.
All right. Congratulations. All right. So next would be Jeff.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Coleman. I was going to say my name was Joe. There we go. I was going to say my name was Joe Nicola, seeing all the Nicola shirts out there. Thought maybe I might get a little more support, but Jeff Coleman, I'm your state rep here for District 32, which is Grain Valley, Oak Grove, and now Buckner. It goes beyond Buckner a little bit, but Buckner is what everybody's going to know. I've been your state rep for the last 6 years. This is my last term. So I'm running for my last term now, and I'm excited to be doing so. I am excited that Jennifer is running as well. You know, we've had a lot of negativity go on in our last primaries. And I think, personally, it should be more about you and what you're gonna do instead of your opponent and how horrible they are. Not that you're horrible, Jennifer. I like you. So, for me, I think that we want to keep things positive. We want to keep things good for the people that we represent, which is our district, about 37,000 people up thereabouts for the state house side. But when and if we continue to go forward, the emblem says state representative. And so while I represent people here local, I also represent the whole state. And so you are the ones who elect us. Too often people get down at the Capitol and they forget that. I hope that the people that have elected me know that I'm here for you and that that's who I represent and that's who I will continue to represent, not the lobbyists, not necessarily the party, but you as the people of Missouri. So that's who I am, and I thank you for being here, and I thank Jennifer for being here so we can debate some of these things and the policies that we both have. You know, often I think that we've gotten so divided in our politics that we forget to come back to the middle, which is where we need to be. And we have a lot more in common than what we think we do. So thank you very much.
Next up will be Robert. Yeah, your chair is probably the one that's got all the cords around it. No.
Yes, good evening, and thank you all for being here today. Representative Robert Sauls, I represent Independence, Missouri, which is in central Independence, Missouri. So basically, the area is, if you all are familiar with it, the area where Bridger is, so the junior highs, all the way basically to 435, Blue Ridge Cutoff, around 24 and 23rd Street, and then 4 years ago, well actually I came in with Jeff, so at that time I represented the central part and the eastern part of Independence. Now I represent the central part and the western part of Independence. I have dedicated my life to public service. I was a prosecutor for 6.5 years, a JAG reservist for about 11, and a state representative for 6. And I agree with much of what's been said. I think that much of what's important is what we do in the legislature for people, and that's what I focused on the past 6 years. And yeah, I think that's pretty much. Well, I mean, I don't really feel like I need to keep going on, but happy to answer other questions and happy to look forward to more questions. Thank you.
All right, next up will be Joe.
Mr. Mayor and Alderman, thank you so much for hosting this debate forum, and thank you all very much for being here as well, for coming. It shows you care. You care about our community and our state. My name's Joe Nicola, and I'm running because we are losing our freedoms day by day. And when the COVID lockdowns came, I kept my church open because I stand on the First Amendment. We have a First Amendment, freedom of religion, freedom to assemble. And that was the last straw to me of watching us lose our freedoms. So I'm running out of a sense of duty to protect and secure everybody's freedom. Doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, liberal, doesn't matter. We need to secure our freedoms. I got to marry my high school sweetheart. We've been married 40 years this year. And I'm happily married. You'll have to ask her if she is. I started my own business at the age of 23, ran it for about 9 years, went into the ministry, also went into the Navy. I served 6 years in the Navy Seabees. And I've been a pastor in Independence for 34 years. 9 years as a youth pastor, and 25 years. We just celebrated 25-year anniversary for our church as a senior pastor. So I've been serving people in communities and families for quite some time. I absolutely love people. God created everybody, and I love people. And I love this nation. And we have the greatest nation on the face of the planet. And we need to do everything we can. We need all citizens to be involved to preserve our freedoms. I've been running on property taxes because our property taxes here in Jackson County are just outrageous. I've been holding senior tax freeze forums. I've held 13 of them so far. I've got another one next week, and to help seniors preserve our property rights. So that's very dear to me. We need to preserve our property rights. So that's a little bit about me. I'm sure you get to hear a little bit more here in the next little bit as we are answering questions. But I want to thank my colleagues for being here as well. Thank you for coming out and debating some issues and talking about them. And thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Sorry, I have to do this. Because I've already lost. I just lost. Because I neglected to thank my wife. Who has been here with me the whole 6 years. And thank you very much, Debbie Coleman. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to start with a question from the audience. This goes out to all the candidates, so you'll all have a chance to respond to it. The question is, with bullying becoming more of a problem, especially now with technology and cyberbullying, what's your stance on how to handle this, both during and outside of school hours? Would you support a state bill that holds bullies accountable, possibly with criminal consequences, while also putting some focus on parental responsibility? And what would you do to make sure that all kids feel safe and supported?
Well, obviously bullying is a big part of it. One of the things that I have seen, especially as the election gets closer, and whether it's on social media or actually in our schools, we are seeing, it's been mentioned before that we are somewhat divided, and it is up to us as parents to set an example for our children and take accountability and have those conversations with your kids. If they're spending their time doom scrolling on Twitter, they're going to get a lot of misinformation out there on how they're supposed to behave instead of looking towards our parents. But as far as like the cyberbullying and stuff in schools, I do support that we needed to have some legislation that those kinds of bills have to have some teeth, and they need to have some consequences, and not just for the kids that are creating these situations in our schools, but also for parents that are not being responsible for that in a way. One of the things we saw is at the football game last week, we saw some political information that were put on cars that we did not agree with. That's not coming from the kids, it's coming from the parents. And we really need to be able to have our community support from our police officers, and perhaps that we need to, as parents, not feel afraid to go to our superintendents, to go to our schools, and to, say, hey, my kid needs some support here. So one of the things that I feel that we should absolutely do is we cannot have kids afraid to go to school, especially after we've had kids already out of school because of COVID lockdowns. We need to make sure that that social environment is not terrifying to them. So again, it is really, we need to hold parents accountable, but we also need to have an avenue where we have a better resource available to deal with in the classroom, whether it's talking to our teachers, our superintendents, or having extra resource officers. I have no issues with having those available, but we also need to be able to not be so divided on, we all have more in common in this row than we actually have, divisions. So, and that's really all I have to say.
This is a very tough subject, I think, because in my day, if a bully started bullying you, you fought back. Because bullies bully those people who they know aren't going to fight back, right? So that has always been my stance for my kids, and as many of you know, I was on the school board for 12 years. And I always told my kids, if somebody starts bullying you, I want you to just push back. I want you to just knock them down and say, don't do that again. If I catch you bullying somebody else, to your point, Jennifer, then you're going to have to deal with it at school and with me. Because bullying is not a good thing. But we have to figure out how we're going to get rid of it. And the one piece that I think is harder today is it's not just the bully on the playground who is talking to you and wanting to fight. It's now bullying on social media. And it has affected the kids in a very negative way because they get all these people out there on social media that hear what somebody else is saying, whether it's the truth or not the truth, and that causes consequences that we don't want to have happen. And to that degree, I think there might be room for some legislation, or at least talk about legislation, to make sure that the parents get involved, because that's really where it boils back to, is the parents. We have to figure out a way to get the parents to start parenting again, because that's the crux of all the things that we have to deal with the violence and the bullying. So I'd be open to at least talking about it. I'd have to know all the details in it, because the one thing, we can't legislate parenting, unfortunately. I wish we could, but we can't. So I'd be open to listening, and we would go from there.
Mr. Saul?
Yes, thank you. So, one thing, and I think that, not to disagree entirely with that, but we do kind of legislate parenting. I was a juvenile attorney for 3 years, and part of that was abuse and neglect, and so there are some consequences to actions. I think that's important. But to the point, I think to something that Jeff said, I think bullying was obviously different 20 years ago. I think that, it oftentimes, if it was at school, it stopped when you went home. And that's not something that happens now. Now, there is the situation where you get it all the time, right? I mean, you get it at school. If the bully is online on Facebook or something, then it may very well follow you the whole time, which I think makes it a little bit harder for youth these days. As far as what state law, yeah, I think that's fine. I think making sure that we do something. I will say that as far as schools and education goes, I think it would be important to, I think it's important to tie funding more. Funding is tied to attendance, and I think it should be tied to enrollment, because I think what you see a lot of times in schools is sometimes a reluctance to require that bad kids get suspended, or get suspended for what they should be suspended for. And I think that's one of the problems. I think if we were sticking strictly on that, I think that schools should be a little stricter on that. And I think that's one of the ways you could do it, is by giving them the freedom to do that. So, state bill, I would agree with that, as well as I think holding parents accountable if they're not doing anything as well. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a great question. I think we could do some things legislatively, but we have so many laws already. I've worked with teenagers for quite a few years. I also worked for the Blue Springs School District for 17 years, and I worked on school buses with discipline issues. And there's two main issues teachers have today. When I talk to them, that's their pay and discipline. And you can't really discipline anyone. And I'll just give you an example. When I was on a school bus, and I was always put on a school bus to help the driver with discipline issues. Drivers can't even touch a child, can't put their hand on them. Not only that, if they're coming down the aisle while you're driving, you can't even put your hand out to stop them. That's called impeding their progress. This is how bad discipline has gotten in the schools. And we need to release these superintendents and administrators to be able to discipline. When I was a youth minister and I had kids in my youth group that it was a zero tolerance. You didn't do it. And we have to be strong on some of these things. Jeff referenced, when we grew up, we would be in trouble at school, and we got in trouble when we came back home. That's disappeared. We have cameras on school buses. When I was working there, we had 3 cameras. It was my job to look at the cameras. If there was a problem, pull it off. talking to parents, they would argue with you, and you have the video proof. We have to have some discipline. We've got to unleash the schools to be able to discipline kids that are bullying, causing problems. There's no consequences. We're finding this not only in schools with kids, but with crime. There's very little consequences anymore for people. They might get arrested, they go, and they're released within hours. Consequences are a great deterrent and punishment. So we've got to get back to that in our society. We have to get back to it in our schools and really let them do what they need to do to keep, teachers need to be safe. School bus drivers need to be safe. The rest of those kids on the school bus need to be safe. I can show you some, well, I can't anymore, but I could have showed you some videos that were just hair raising. You're driving a tin can down the street filled with 65 kids. And they're going nuts and throwing stuff out the window, and it was so hard to get some discipline. When I got on the bus, they were removed. I took them off. Because we're not going to tolerate that stuff. And that's what we have to be a little tougher on that kind of behavior. Thank you.
All right. All right, we'll move on to economic development. We'll just switch up and just be for Jeff first. What specific policies do you propose to stimulate economic growth in Missouri? And in particular, do you have any ideas for our area?
So, economic development is probably a tough issue because everybody down at the state capitol wants to put new laws in to keep people safe, which I get, and I want that to happen, but they go a step further and they put regulations in that really stop the enhancement of our businesses, both statewide and local. So regulation, as far as I'm concerned, we need to take a quick look at that and really make sure that that regulation is needed. I'm the chair of professional registration and licensing, and constantly we are getting bills in that we turn away because they just want to make it tougher for these people to do business. So we don't even let it get to the floor because there's no reason for that. Now, if there's a reason for it, I'll give you an example. There is a business called, oh my gosh, they do eyebrows. They tattoo eyebrows. Microblading. Microblading is tattooing. Even though they say it's not, you are putting pigment underneath the skin. And so some of the things I saw in the professional registration and licensing was one lady that had 3 eyebrows. Don't ask me why she allowed this person to keep putting eyebrows. Maybe she thought that they would come off, but they didn't. And so we did a law to protect against that, and basically all it said is they had to have the same training as a tattoo artist, right? That makes sense. But to have some of these other things where we could have one license to do business across the whole state, and I know my municipality's not gonna like this, but why do I have to have a license here and have a license in another city across the state that I'm doing the exact same thing in? And I've got the same credentials in both places, but yet they're 2 different licenses and 2 different issues that I have to resolve. That was one that came across that doesn't make sense. So as we get new people in from the military that come in, that their spouses get moved, we want to make that easier for them to do business. We've done away with the licensing process as long as they have a licensing in the other states. So that would be my suggestion, is less regulation.
Jennifer?
Well, I'm gonna agree and disagree with this because I understand where Jeff is coming from on regulations. However, we have seen actual deaths from boar's head lunch meat or whatever because we had those regulations rolled back, and whether it's in the industries here in Missouri or we've had some of those
regulations are there for a reason, to keep our communities safe. We don't stifle economic growth in a small business community while letting our corporations get away with it. I think it's a two-tier system where we're allowing certain regulations to be rolled back with corporations, but yet we're holding small businesses more accountable, and they're having to put more of the bill for those kinds of things. I know right now on the ballot we have our proposition that is wanting a living wage, and I agree with that. I think that our small businesses know that they're going to find that a little bit tough. Whatever we need to do, however, is not so much just straight across the board say regulation is bad. One of the things that we have to also understand is that our corporations are not paying the kinds of income taxes in the state of Missouri that they need to be paying. And one of the bills that I disagree with is rolling back taxes in 2008 to 0% on corporations. I don't think that that trickles down to the rest of us here in our community. I don't think that it helps us allocate funding for our school districts, because if there's no corporate money coming in, there's no revenue coming in, at some point we're going to be underwater. And this is just a basic business principle. I've had a self-employment business for many, many years, and one of the things that it's pretty easy economics to know is that you gotta bring in revenue and you gotta keep costs down, otherwise you end up in the hole. So one of the things we cannot talk about in Green Valley is not allowing for small businesses to be able to come in and not be supported by our communities, while the big corporations are swallowing up the smaller ones, the smaller businesses. And one of the growth patterns that we see, and having lived in Green Valley in this area for a long time, many of you know that there are growing pains. There's always going to be growing pains. When our city and our rural areas start to grow and that urban crime tends to come out our direction, we need to have the support from our law enforcement and our firefighters and our school districts to accommodate that growth. And it's painful sometimes. However, what we don't do is at a state level just allow for people to, the big guys, to get away with it, and the small businesses have to pay for it.
Okay, time. All right. Joe?
So I've been a small business owner before, and I would definitely agree with Jeff. Regulations. When I had a motorcycle shop, and the ridiculousness of permits and regulations, I had to pay for a permit just to bring a motorcycle into the building and take it back out. It was a whole separate permit. We are smothering our small business owners with regulations, taxes, and government should never pick winners or losers. What businesses were closed down during COVID? Small businesses. We're smothering them, we're killing them. We need to unleash the entrepreneurial spirit and allow them the freedom to run their business, create things, design things, make things, sell things and products. But we're hindering them with taxes and regulations and all of these types of things. One of the first things I would do for that question, and my district represents several different cities, is I would meet with the mayor, with the Chamber of Commerce, with small business owners, and talk to them and ask them, how can we work together? How can we partner together to help in Green Valley for economic development? What can I do on a state level? I want to hear from them, for people right in the community. I would do that in Independence, Green Valley, Oak Grove, and talk to them to hear, let's work together. How can we do it? And come to some solutions, because that's what I'm about. I'm about finding solutions, not just talking about things. That's why I'm running. To find some solutions, safeguard our freedoms and our liberties, let small business owners loose to do what they do best. Because this nation runs on the back of small business owners, not the big corporations. Thank you.
Robert?
Thank you. So I'm sure Jeff can also attest to this. There are a lot of small government politicians who come to Jefferson City who claim to be small government and then file bills to regulate small business and various things like that. So I've been endorsed by the Missouri Chamber of Commerce, and there are different avenues we can take here. So Proposition A was talked about a second ago. I think one important part to Proposition A, that other than the wage component, is the sick leave component. So when I was knocking doors, this might have been the first time. I think it was before COVID, or at least maybe it was that year. I don't recall. But I remember talking to a gentleman who was a butcher at a grocery store, and he was telling me, I was just asking, what can we do? And one of the things he said was, I don't have any sick leave. And, this guy handles meat on a daily, and of course this was 4 years ago. It was a major grocery store. I'm not trying to call anybody out, but, this guy handles meat and cheese and everything else. And the fact that he would possibly be sick and not have the option to take some leave, I think is a little bit concerning, right? I mean, at the end of the day, he's not making a lot of money doing that job, and I would like it if he would have that option to call in sick. I think that would be good for all of us. As far as companies go, right? I think we've all kind of touched on some points. I also think food trucks are an important part to this. They have to get a license in every single. It's mobile, obviously. They have to get a license in Jackson County, and Summit, and Blue Springs, and Independence, and Grand Valley, and Sugar Creek. They have to have all of these licenses to sell food, and I think a universal license makes sense for situations like that. As far as individuals go, in economic growth, I think I've tried to do various things. I filed a bill to do away with taxes on groceries. I sponsored a senior tax credit. Senior tax freeze for property taxes. I sponsored a bill to do away with property taxes for disabled veterans, and voted against the gas tax. So there's all kinds of things in individual capacity trying to promote economic growth as well. But I think ultimately what we need to do is, I also agree, we need to kind of get out of people's way and let them determine what's best. Thank you.
Okay, the next question comes from the audience, and it kind of goes with the last question. How can legislators better protect family farms? We'll be back to Jennifer and Jeff.
Well, some of the things that we talked about is, I know it's come up again, and I don't know, not having been in the legislator before, but perhaps whether Robbie or Jeff can answer these questions, is that we have a severe lack of a farm bill available to us, and there's certain things that we've mentioned in the past about, I know some of the fear is immigration, and I know that we've talked about, allowing large landowners to come and buy up small farms, and we have priced out our farmers to a point where they're struggling even to make ends meet. It's something that we have to do at a state level in order to support our small farmers, and whether it's breaking up those monopolies of those large farm or those agricultural companies that control most of our dairy and control most of our cattle ranges and control a lot of our agriculture here in Missouri, that we absolutely need to address that. Now, as far as having those specific solutions, I am not a farmer, I am a makeup artist. I do weddings, but I do talk to people a lot. So some of the things that I found in the areas that I talked to in Grand Valley and Oak Grove and Buckner, not a lot of them are farmers. But I do understand that if we are trying to, some of the things that I disagree with that is happening in Jeff City right now is the focus is on getting rid of our immigrants, and those are our folks that are actually harvesting our food here. And I don't think that we don't have a solution for how we're going to replace those workers. So one of the things that I feel that I definitely do need to do more research on that. I definitely have some appointments that I'm going to be talking to some of the cattle ranchers and stuff this next week. then I would probably have a little bit better opinion, but I'm not going to speak for things that I don't know a whole lot about. So I hope at that point I'm going to be able to get that opportunity to have a better answer to that question. So.
Well, Jennifer, you have touched on some points that are really they're true, and that is a lot of our farmland is being taken up by the corporations. I mean, they're being farmed by the corporations. Legislation was put forth last year, I think it was last year or the prior year, to have tax credits going to the farmers. And I voted against it when my district has quite more farmers than what you think. But the reason I voted against it is not because I'm against agriculture, but because it was going to the wrong people. It was going to the big corporations and not the small farmers who are the ones that really need it. The farmers today, the problem that we face is that it's an aging issue, that the farmers are starting to retire and there's nobody to back it up. So what happens then? Who comes in to farm our property? And that is the big corporations, not from Missouri, but outside of Missouri, and sometimes they're outside of the whole country. And that's not what we want to have happen. So I would absolutely be in favor of helping our small family farmers and helping those who want to get involved with farming that are young folks that are just getting started. And I'm more than willing to help them with some tax credits and such, because I'm not a big fan of tax credits. But in those cases, I think it's necessary, because what comes behind it is something that you don't want. So at that point, I'm a big fan of agriculture. I grew up on the farm. My grandparents farmed like 1,500 acres down in Atherton. I had the opportunity to take over the farm, but at that time, I was a young kid and I turned it down. And that offer was only given once. My grandparents were good, hard workers, and it went to my uncle. And unfortunately, years later, he passed away, and then the farm dissolved. So, I'm sorry I didn't take that opportunity, because as I look back, that opportunity was an awesome opportunity, but life goes on, right? So, farming is necessity, and I'm a firm believer that we need to help the young people out to help fill the gaps.
Robert?
Thank you. So actually, my answer is fairly similar to Jeff's here. So I do think tax credits for smaller farms makes a lot of sense. But in addition to that, I have sponsored a bill to do away with foreign ownership of farmland, because I think that is also ties into some of that problem of corporations coming in and buying up the farmland. And quite frankly, as to Jeff's point, it is oftentimes foreign countries and foreign companies that are doing that. So I think that is an important part to it. I think, like I said, I've sponsored that in the past and intend to sponsor that again. So, but ultimately, I think those are both the 2 points that he made that I also agree with. Thank you.
Joe?
So I know very little about farming, but I do like to eat. And several years ago, I outbid a very young girl and bought a dozen pigs. And I raised a dozen pigs for about a year. That's my extent of farming. So we have the same problem with small family farms as we do with small business and we have with our homes. We have corporations coming in, buying up our homes. We have corporations buying out our farms and trying to kill our small business. It's a common theme everywhere. I completely agree. We should not have 1 square foot of our land owned by a foreign entity at all. Also, we have other very rich people like Bill Gates buying up land everywhere too. Just like we have corporate home investors buying up our homes. And we need to find a way to limit these corporations from buying so much and swallowing up our family farms. Our food, we're talking about a major security issue here. Because we have enemies, even domestically, that are trying to steal our water rights. They're trying to steal our land rights. They are trying to manipulate our food sources. And we need to have some people in the state legislature that have some wisdom, that understand what the problem is, understand the bigger picture of what's really going on, and really to find some solid solutions to keep this from happening. If we allow corporations and all of these other entities to have control of our food source, what does that say about us? We need to protect small farms, we need to protect small business, and we need to protect and we have to allow people. I'm a free market capitalist, and we have to unleash people. Again, I know I said it earlier, but we have to unleash the creativity. That's one of the things our nation has been so good about, because we have such great freedom, is unleashing the creativity in people, the entrepreneurial spirit to create and invent. And when they create they create businesses, they create jobs. That brings economic growth, that pays taxes, that funds our schools and our fire department, and it's just on and on. And but we're clamping everything down and restricting people. And we've got to stop it. We got to end that and get government off the backs of people. Thank you.
All right, next question. It's a little close to home. I currently have 2 adult children living in my basement. Due to...
No, they can't come live with us.
Yeah. Due to the effects of the affordable housing crisis, what strategies do you recommend to address the affordable housing crisis in Missouri?
Well, I know this is probably, they're all gonna repeat my answers, so I might as well just give them all the answers at this point. But I think one of the things I mentioned before is that when we're in a small community like Grand Valley that is growing, we saw it happen with Lee Summit, we saw it happen with Blue Springs. Oak Grove is currently experiencing this, and we've got half of our community that says we want affordable housing, but they have to be houses, single-family houses. We don't want apartments. We don't want condos. We don't want those kinds of things because they bring crime. However, you got 2 kids living in your basement, they're not gonna be buying a house anytime tomorrow. They need to be able to have someplace close to home. I'm assuming they're living there because of your wife's cooking. So she's, and laundry, because, we all have adult kids that definitely enjoy being close to mom and dad. But one of the things we have to be able to do is to support our young people to be able to have those kinds of things. It used to be that they were saying, well, if you could afford, your rent should be a certain portion of your income. Those numbers don't work anymore. We're seeing right now a 2-bedroom apartment that's renting for $1,500 a month. And I know when we go back, and we're talking about our first apartments, you all remember your first apartments or whatever, it was probably what? $300, $400, $500, and you thought that was a fortune? When we don't have those kinds of things available. So going back to allowing for development of certain areas, whether it's the developers receiving some kind of tax credits, in order to provide those kinds of housing. What we need to do, and I'm going to say this, we need to have quality skilled laborers, and that goes to our unions. We need to be able to give our unions the first crack at making sure that they got some of those buildings that they can do, like they did in this beautiful Green Valley Police Department. So I know we've got a lot of folks that are individuals, that are small businesses, but we also need to be able to have those quality skills. One of the complaints I've heard, in whether it's in Independence or whether it's in Green Valley, is that these outside companies come in, they get quickly inspected, and then there's just nothing but problems with them after that. So whether or not it's first-time buyer credits, I'm not 100% sure how Missouri would even go about, paying for that or offering those kinds of things. But what I think we need to do is obviously with the corporate interest, there's a rash of houses right now in Green Valley that are all owned by the same company, and then they are unfortunately not being taken care of, but they're also requiring last month's rent plus a security deposit plus all this stuff, so it's definitely a problem. So being able to work with our community leaders and work with our senators as well to create some kind of a communication with our community leaders, I guess.
All right, thank you. Jeff?
So anytime there is a hike in prices, it's going to be a matter of supply and demand. When the supply is not there and the demand is high, that means that your values are going to go up. And so our issue is we don't have enough houses to keep up with the supply or the demand. And until we get the housing going again, until we get more developers and more houses here in Green Valley and across the state, and across the nation for that fact, it's not going to go down. Because when you have multiple people coming in to make a bid on a house, and as one of those bidders you have to bid way up, it's going to push the prices up every single time. So we have to get a handle on building more houses. I don't know that there's any regulations that you can put on a market like this to keep it down. It's simply the dollar right now. We've printed way too many dollars. Inflation is going up on everything. And until we get a handle on that, we're going to have to suffer through this, unfortunately. So maybe the kids in your home, going back to the old days in the Depression, isn't really all that bad, because maybe we start that family thing going again, and it takes care of a lot of other issues that we have, right? If we get a family going and doing what the family's supposed to do, that would take care of a lot of issues. So I don't know that having your kids, as I do, as many of you know, I have 7 kids, 3 of them still at home, it's not really all that bad. So until you ask them to do something, they don't do it. So, but that would be my answer.
So in 2020, I voted for the low-income housing tax credit. And since then, tens of millions of dollars have been pumped into that. I think we should increase that and keep working on that in particular. To Jeff's point, the starting home now is, it's just crazy, right? I mean, 10 years ago, you could buy a house for $100,000. Now it's $200,000, $250,000, the same house. I think that's part of the problem. I would like to see us work with cities and municipalities to build, quite frankly, smaller starting homes. I think that obviously, folks with a young family, you've got, 1 or 2 kids, you need a little more space. But realistically, it might be nice to have some starting homes that are more like apartment size. 1,000 foot would be cheaper, and I think that would be one of those things that we could do to help reduce the cost of housing. Because I think, to your point, kids just starting out in the workforce, you're not going to be able to afford $250,000. A lot of folks can't now, even with that. So I think the big problem here is that we've skipped that starting home process, and it just keeps going up, right? People moving up in the price of housing, and I think we need to try to make smaller homes to try to make that be part of the solution. Thank you.
So I think affordable housing is really part of a much larger issue, and that's the skyrocketing inflation. Everything is expensive. I think a good way to start to fix that is to elect another administration from the president on down, and elect the party that our lives were a little bit better 4 years ago to start. And we need to lower inflation. We have, I'm going to repeat this again, one of the problems with skyrocketing home prices, my wife's been selling real estate for over 30 years, and we've seen a lot of ups and downs here in the last few years. But you have these big corporations coming in and paying cash over list price, and then it raises the value of everybody else's house in the neighborhood. And then what happens with the county assessment? Then they're assessing our taxes at those high inflated values, and it just keeps going and going, and it's taxing us out of our homes. It's keeping younger people from being able to buy homes. Look at the interest rates now. We got an interest rate not too awful long ago at 2.8. I don't know what it is now, but it's not 2.8. And so inflation, and you know, the government's printing dollars like crazy. Our dollars are worth less. Inflation is skyrocketing. We have these big corporations coming and buying in. Jackson County is unhinged with these property taxes. I have talked to so many elderly people that are on fixed incomes crying because they're going to lose their home. They can't afford the taxes on them. So it's just a domino effect. And not only does it increase our values, and then the assessments, and then our insurance to insure our homes goes up. So we have to be able to limit these corporations from buying our homes. And just buying, they're buying up whole neighborhoods. And we have to we have to cap our assessments. I know Representative Coleman, for 6 years, has had a bill to cap our assessment at 2% a year, 4% for an assessment year. We have to be able to cap them to be reasonable so we can keep elderly. We have an aging population. We need to keep our elderly in their homes as long as they want to. They've lived there, they've worked for them, they paid for them, and now we're taxing them out of their house? It's criminal is what it is. And we need to protect our property rights. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. And these big corporate investors are part of the problem. But inflation, we've got to rein in inflation, and that's got to come from the federal government. Thank you.
Can I rebut on the inflation?
Sure.
Unfortunately, you know, we're hearing a lot about inflation, but inflation's currently at 2.4%, which is prior to COVID. Yes, it was prior to COVID. You all want to, you know, you can laugh, and that's all right. But what we're seeing a lot is our monopolies of our grocery stores. We're seeing a lot of our, you know, electricity bills. We're seeing a lot of those bonuses that are being taken by our CEOs and those corporations, and then they're passing those things down to the consumers. Do you actually believe that tariffs are going to make your lives easier? Because that is what you're actually believing from the administration that is not currently in office. Tariffs are actually going to be increasing costs for the consumers. And if you think inflation is whatever you believe it is now, it is definitely going to be a lot worse by the time it's all said and done. So that is my rebuttal.
Okay,
COVID was for
if we could, this is a debate between the candidates, not the audience and the candidates, so thank you, I appreciate it. Next question comes from the audience, and it's directed towards Robert, specifically. Everybody else can respond once Robert's done. What exactly are you planning on doing to get relief from excessive Jackson County property taxes?
Sure. So, what exactly am I? Do you mind saying that again? What exactly?
What exactly are you planning on doing to get relief from excessive Jackson County property tax?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first off, I filed a bill to make it so the assessor would be elected. I think that's part of the problem. I think what happened, you know, there's every other assessor in the state, with exception of, I believe, St. Louis City, has an elected assessor. I think, quite frankly, if we had an elected assessor, I don't think we'd see this problem because she wouldn't be an elected assessor. So I think that's a key component to it. I have, like Jeff, filed many of these same bills. Like I said, I filed the senior property tax freeze bill too. The same year that it passed, I filed a similar one. I've filed and support. I was the ranking member of the special committee on property tax reform and supported every single bill we had. Quite frankly, because of the situation in Jackson County, where we presently are. It is a problem. I recognize that. We have supported those types of bills. And I think that's a key to it. I think having an assessor that's elected is important, but I also think making sure that, presently the law says it has to be fair market value. So the jump in the fair market value has caused part of this problem. I think if we put something in there to make it so that it was at least had to be incremental jumps, I don't think it would hit as hard as it does, as effective as many people as it has, because obviously what we don't want to see is we don't want to have people taxed out of their homes. My grandparents built and lived in the same house their whole life, well, not their whole life, but their whole adult life when they got married and they had, I think that's people like that. You don't get to see, the value goes up. You don't get to actually take that value. You don't get to benefit from that because you're just living in a home. And once you've paid it off, you really don't. It's really unfair. So I think some of those measures are important. I think, but I've been very supportive of practically all the legislation we've had, and continue to do so.
Joe, we'll go to the next.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question. And this, again, is one of the major issues that I'm running on. And I do agree we need to have an elected assessor. And we do have an appointed one, but that's not the answer because we have elected officials that can do just as much to us as an appointed one. But I do think that we definitely need an elected assessor. We need to, and I'm planning on working with Representative Coleman to get our assessments capped. We need to get them at a cap in whatever we can agree on in the legislature. So 14.9 is where they're at now, unless there's a physical inspection. 14.9 is too high. It's too high to raise people's assessments. So an elected assessor, we need to cap those. Did you know artificial intelligence is being used to assess your property? We need to get rid of it. We need to eliminate artificial intelligence, go back to real people doing this. And those are a few of the things that I would like to see done and that I would do. And we need to rein in our counties. They're just, especially Jackson County, it's running wild. We have to put a stop to this. And they're even ignoring the state tax commission right now. So it's just out of control. So we've got to, I know I've said this probably 3 different times, but we have to secure people's property rights. It's number one. And if we don't, John Adams said this, it's one of my favorite quotes, and I've been using it a lot. If we cannot secure our property rights, we do not have liberty. And I completely agree with that. We have to have the right to own stuff and to keep it, and not the government to tax us out of it or away from it. Personal property taxes are really high on our vehicles and everything that we own. We're paying rent. We've already paid sales tax for our personal property, and then we have to pay taxes every year just for the privilege of owning it. We're being taxed everywhere, and we're being double taxed, triple taxed, and we have to rein all of this stuff in because we are killing people with this. We are limiting their freedom and their liberty, and we have to stop it. We have to find ways to come together, work together, and stop it. Thank you.
My favorite subject. I've been working on this, as Joe said, for the last 6 years. I got put on a special tax committee my freshman year. We went to Kansas City, St. Louis, Columbia, Springfield, and back to Jeff City. And we were talking about municipality taxes. Not property taxes, but municipality taxes. Property taxes took the majority of the time in every single city because, as Joe said, there were people coming up, they were public hearings, people coming up and crying because they were afraid they were losing their houses they'd lived in for 40 or 50 years. That's what prompted me to do the 2% per year. And I've been presenting that, and it's not even something that the legislators can do. All I'm asking is put this language on the ballot so you can vote for it. It's about the people. It's not even a partisan thing, because it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or you're a Republican. If you get this tax bill and you can't pay it, guess what? Jackson County is going to come and take your house away in 3 years, and they're going to put it up on the county steps, and you're not going to have a house anymore. That's what I'm trying to stop. Well, fortunately, we got a bill through that we fixed, because it was a horrible bill, Senate Bill 190, and we fixed it last year, and now Joe has done a phenomenal job of getting the word out, and I've gotten to ride his coattails the whole way, and we've been doing these tax forms to show people how to get your property taxes frozen. And Joe has a team of people that he brings with him, and they actually will do the application for you right then and there. So it is essential that we get those things done. You've got until December the 31st to get that done if you're 62 or older. But that doesn't help your kids or grandkids. The kids and the grandkids still suffer through the increases in those property taxes that are unlimited. As many of you know, they can go up as much as Jackson County deems it necessary to do. And Robbie, the law says that it should be market value, you're right, but it goes further. It says that you should be between 90% and 110% of market value. That's what the law says. So what does that mean? Why would you ever tax somebody over 100% of their home value? So this is very, very important to me. I will continue to fight this battle until I finally get it done. And I know I'm running out of time, but I got a couple of things to say. When you have an increase in your tax, in your value of your home, to Robbie's point, you've never received that money. So you're getting taxed on unrealized gains. What happens if the value of your house goes down? You get that money back? No. That's why, I just remember a time when there was a party in a bay, and there was some tea involved, right? And this is much, much greater than that issue at that time, and yet we still pay our taxes. If you stop and you pay attention to all the taxes that you pay every single day, whether it's your sales taxes, whether it's you go to the grocery store, you get taxed. You go to the gas station, you get taxed. And Robbie, I, like you, didn't vote for that gas tax, just so you know. Every time you turn around, you're getting taxed. Think about how much
That's
that
fine.
actually is.
That's
Thank
fine,
you.
sorry.
Well, this is one of the actual excellent points that I have agreed with Jeff on this, and when it's kind of funny, our side-by-side article in the Focus on Oak Grove, we said very much the similar things. I actually do believe that we need to have an elected assessor. It shouldn't be an appointed position. I feel like if you're elected and you've got to campaign and knock doors and you got to talk to them about how you're qualified for that job, you're going to work harder for it. And you're going to actually provide some solutions for that. And I do agree that there should not be an assessed value anything more than 100% of your home. That those are what, fairy tales and future ideas that somebody, I have a magic 8-ball at home, I can just shake it and then tell you what it's going to be, but that is not what we need from our elected officials or even our appointed officials. So one of the things that we have seen, I bought my house 20 years ago. I think it was under $100,000, but then the value itself and then the bill just, I think, I almost fell out of my chair. But the property tax freeze, I believe that is an excellent guideline for 2 to 4% on the cap is what I think that you guys were talking about. Was it 2%? I absolutely agree with that because, I do hear from people too, they're taking care of their disabled son because they're 85 years old and their house should be paid off, but they can't afford their property tax bill. They don't know where they're gonna go. So it is unfortunate that these are the things that they're having to worry about. So I believe that the plan that our current legislator had about regarding the assessment, and especially the fact that Jackson County is pushed back so hard and so difficult, and they don't have a plan to pay for it, and that we're just all gonna have to suck it up, and they're gonna delay it and delay it until people lose their homes is not fair. So I absolutely agree with that.
I just wanted to clear up one thing, because I didn't, so, while I did say fair market value, and I agree, I never said 110% of fair market
No,
value.
I think Joseph.
Right, well, no,
No, but that's what the law is.
right, and so I just wanted to make it clear that I was not advocating for that. What I was advocating for was incremental, like has been set caps, is what I was trying to advocate for in that sense. Also, we were on that committee together freshman year, and we did that. I think we implemented some different policies over the years. We did put, so that required, because part of the problem is didn't have in-person assessments. So we required that if you were going to raise someone's property tax a certain percentage, you'd have to have in-person assessments, and have to actually be on the property. I think part of the problem with this whole process is that I mean, the average time is 90 seconds that they, it's quick.
Time flies when you're having fun. Just got one in from the audience for Robert again, so we're not picking on you, I promise. The audience member asked, the gas tax passed on May 11th, 2021. Robert said he voted against the tax. The House Journal recorded he was absent with leave. Can he explain?
I would have to, I voted against it. I don't know. Was it maybe it was the emergency clause or something? I remember specifically. So, I'd have to reflect, I'd have to look. But, no, I remember voting against it.
All right, next question. You want to go for yours?
Follow up with still.
We're still kind of on the same topic, so I'll follow up here. This one is directed towards Joe. Will the new property tax cut for seniors have to be done each year?
That's easy. No. No, it used to, they did a fix on SB 190, and so the fix to it is you no longer have to qualify for Social Security. You only have to be 62, and only one of the spouses have to be 62. And there's no longer a cap on the property. It used to be $550,000. That was the cap. You couldn't freeze it if your house was worth more than that. That's gone. And you would have to apply every year. And that is gone. So you just apply one time. However, the county reserves the right to actually contact you at any time they want for you to prove that you are still alive and living in the house. Okay? So, but the original answer is no, you don't have to apply every year.
Unless anybody else wants to comment on that.
No.
Alright, so we'll move on from taxes, and this one I'll give you some choices on where you want to go with it. And we'll start with Joe. So there are several amendments up for vote from Citizens Missouri in November. Reproductive rights, sports betting. I'll let you pick one of the amendments that you would like to address and what you feel about that amendment.
I'll pick all of them. So there's a lot on the ballot. How many of you, hopefully you've already looked at the ballot. Maybe some of you have already voted. Amendment 3, which is reproductive health freedom, and we have sports betting, we have the minimum wage. So there's quite a few things on here. Here's my opinion on that. especially if I'm a state legislator, I don't get to choose that. It's on the ballot. You're going to get to choose that. You're going to decide what you want. So it's not really up to me if Amendment 3 passes or fails. It's going to be up to the people. Or Amendment 4, or whatever, any of the other amendments. It's all up to the people that's going to be on the ballot. So I'm for life. I'm pro-life. From the moment of conception all the way to natural death. So I stand for life at all stages of life. Been saying that over and over on the campaign trail. I personally think Amendment 3 is a horribly written amendment. I think it's way too vague, and I think it's left way open for interpretation. I think if you are even pro-choice, whatever you just think abortion should be, at whatever trimester or month or all the way up to birth, this is not the amendment because it's leaving it way open for interpretation. Let me give you an example. Reproductive health freedom. So how are you going to define that? How is a judge going to define that? I mean, to me, that's anything that has anything to do with reproduction of a child. It leaves it way open and broad. Not only that, if it passes, it's going to be enshrined in our state constitution. Good luck with ever getting that back out. It's just the wrong amendment. The Supreme Court should have never allowed it on the ballot because the way they did the petition was illegal, because it's going to remove some of the state law already that was not made clear. So I guess I will talk about one amendment since I've been talking about that amendment. So again, I just want to say, if you're pro-choice or you agree with abortion, that's your choice. I just think this is a bad one for everybody. And it needs to be redone. So that's my humble opinion. Thank you.
Robert?
Yes, so there are lots of, quite frankly, there are lots of ballot initiatives. There are lots of ballot initiatives, and I've done a pretty in-depth analysis on each one. So on my Facebook page, there's some history to it, some language, and then the arguments both for and against. Because quite frankly, what I think is, to his point is, quite frankly, it's for you to decide. And I'm not here to really convince you on that. I think that's why why I have those on there, because it gives you information both for and against. So I think if you should take a look at it, first off. I think, to be honest, I think there is some cleanup language we could do. I think we're in the situation, quite frankly though, because of the bill that was passed back in 2019. There's no exceptions for rape and incest, and quite frankly, life of mother, the woman has to be in immediate danger of losing her life. And I think that's wrong too. I think there should be those exceptions. I think that I think when the language for life of mother is so, I think that's concerning as well. So I think that you all get the opportunity, we as a state get the opportunity to vote on it, and I think that's important. The Proposition A, as I indicated earlier, is one of those things that I think is important as well. We've got a situation where we can raise the minimum wage and make sure that people have sick leave. And as I indicated, a story of a person that I worked with, when I was knocking doors, the person that I spoke with had an incident where I think we would all want that person to take sick leave. Because people handling food, people interacting with consumers on a daily basis, I don't want to require them to come to choose between, am I going to make rent this week, or am I going to go in sick and possibly get others sick? So I think that's really important. There's really not enough time to talk about each of these. There's like 7 or something. So like I said, I do a fairly in-depth analysis. If you'd like me to send you that, I can do that too. I can send you a hard copy or email it. It's pretty extensive. There's a lot to it, and like I said, it gives you both the good and the bad, so that you can make that decision.
Jeff.
Wow, there is a lot to talk about. I got to briefly touch on A, because while we would all love for everybody to get the wage of $15 an hour, do they really get $15 an hour? No. Because what happens is like what happens over here at McDonald's. They have 80 employees that may have gotten 20 or 30 hours a week when they were making whatever the amount was, $9, $10. Now when they make $15 an hour, they cut their hours back. They have the same dollars going out the door, and the people that are working actually get less money because they get less hours. It all washes out. There's no, they either get less money or prices go up, and we all benefit from that price increase, right? That's sarcasm. Moving on to Amendment 3. I know that is a very, very emotional issue for lots of people. But it's a very emotional issue for me because one of my children wouldn't be here today because my ex-wife was going to abort him. And I had zero to say. We planned on that pregnancy. And she decided that she couldn't deal with it. Because, don't get me wrong, she was dealing with a lot. She was addicted to Vicodin. But she left in the middle of the night. I didn't even know where she was. She calls me the next day, saying she's going to have an abortion the following day. And I pleaded with her because I had already established the bond with that kid that we were going to have together. And she said, nope. And thank the Lord, Indiana had an abortion law. And she had to have my son. I was there. She unfortunately was going through it again and was arrested and was incarcerated when she had my son. And they wouldn't let me in the delivery room. But they brought him straight to me when he was born, and he's been with me ever since. And he is 25 years old today, and I have 2 grandkids from him, and I can't imagine not having him. But again, that's my stance on it. You get the opportunity to vote, and it's your vote, but I want you to know where I stand, because that's what we're here for. And I voted for the heartbeat bill. And nobody ever thought that it was going to be to the states like it is right now. But personally, I'm really glad. I'm really glad.
Well, I want to touch on a couple of the other amendments before I get to the one that's very important to me, but a couple of the things that we haven't brought up about the sports betting and the casino. And I believe that's amendments 2 and 5 on the ballot. And I know there's a lot of arguments that are for, well, you know, we need to keep our Missouri dollars in Missouri, and I would agree with that. I think it's disingenuous, however, that it is saying that that money is going to go for schools, because we've seen it happen before. We've seen it happen with our riverboat casinos where we've not received that money. We saw it with cigarette taxes for instruction on how to quit smoking, and that didn't happen. All of those kinds of things where it's going to benefit the school, whether it's a Powerball or a Keno or lottery or anything else, we have found that those funds have not gone to the schools. And if we're not having corporate interests, those corporate gaming commissions that are coming in and not paying any corporate income taxes, what's 0% of 0 is 0. The schools are not going to be able to receive that money. Now, do I think that you guys should have your freedoms to be able to sports bet? Sure. But let's not make it about schools. Let's not make it about the money that is going to go to schools. I feel that that's disingenuous. One of the issues that is very important to me, and that one of the reasons that I ran, my daughter had Down syndrome. She was nonverbal. She could not consent. She wouldn't be able to tell me if she had ever been assaulted. She was on a type of medication that prevented her from having her menses because it made her so sick. We would not have known if she was pregnant, and there was no exceptions for her to have any kind of choices. Now, she was very ill and had Down syndrome, and she would not have been able to carry a baby to term because it would put her life in jeopardy. Now, I do not believe, and I absolutely believe that you are entitled to your rights and your religious beliefs. Let's not talk about our freedoms are being, aced out here when politicians want to tell you what your personal choice is that belongs between you, your family, and your doctor. And that's all I have to say about Amendment 3.
Just real quick. And not a rebuttal, but just a little bit of correction because you were right and not right in one aspect. The casino monies did go to the schools. The front end they got that, but the legislature took it out from the general account. And so you're right in what you're saying. That's right. It is definitely a wash. The schools did not get the money that was promised to them. They actually got the money, but then they got it taken away through the back door. Just to help. Thank you.
Okay, we'll have one final question, and Brian will ask her, and then after that, we will go through give everyone a chance to wrap up and do a closing statement.
Okay, this question, again, they're making me pick on you, Rob, and I apologize. I'm not doing it on purpose, I promise. This one's addressed to Robert, but of course, everybody can answer. What would be your plan to handle the rise in mental health issues facing society and our first responders?
What would be the mental health? I'm sorry, you said what would be the mental?
It's a kind of a two-part question. What would be your plan to handle the rise in mental health issues facing society and our first responders specifically?
Sure. Yeah. So, in my capacity now, I am a workers' comp attorney, do workers' comp and labor law. And in that role, I have the opportunity to support a lot of firefighters, police, veterans who are suffering from PTSD. I have supported, we've supported that bill and got it through. I've filed several bills like the firefighter cancer presumption that had a PTSD component because I think that that's very important. But ensuring and making sure that they're getting the treatment that they need, making sure that they are getting the help and assistance is very important. I've filed other bills as well to help along with that, with workers' compensation. For example, just even simple things like when you do a work comp claim, you have there's a certain percentage that you have to pay. So you obviously have to pay a filing claim, but you actually have to pay for your mental health records, for your records. And I think that is problematic. They're your records, and I think just taking the cost of that away is one of those things that can help in the process with workers' compensation. But I think making sure that people are supported. I think, to the part with mental health and homelessness, there's so many things that tie in there together, right? I don't think somebody just wakes up and says, I'm going to go live in the woods today. I think realistically, there's a drug component to that, there's a poverty component to that, there's a mental health component to that. There's all parts that need to be addressed, and I think ensuring that we do that. In my capacity in the legislature, I have supported mental health funding. I am a Veterans Commission. I'm on the Veterans Commission and work to ensure that we've had mental health, the Veterans Tiny Homes in St. Louis and Kansas City, funding for both of those. And realistically, in my capacity as a prosecutor, I was also involved with mental health treatment courts. And I think this is a very complex issue, and I think we need to make sure that it gets addressed in all of those ways.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I certainly would love to address this since my opponent's running commercials telling people that I believe mental illness is demon possession. And so in my capacity as a pastor, I am responsible to teach from the scripture, to teach and preach the Bible. And there is demon possession. Jesus talked about it. Jesus cast out demons, and Jesus also told us to go cast out demons. So to make fun of demon possession or anything linked to that is really making fun of my God and my Bible and the scriptures. And so I do not believe, let me just make this clear, I do not believe all mental illness is demon possession. So you could take a lot of my messages over 34 years and pull out little snippets and make it say whatever you'd like to say. I happen to be on a commission in Independence with Habitat for Humanity, the police department, other churches, and some mental health agencies. We've been discussing for months now, because I don't think that the answer to this is all political or from the government. I think the community can help. And we need to get the police on board. We're also discussing the homelessness issue. And so we've been talking about this all of the time, and you can ask anybody there. I don't bring up demon possession with the mental illness stuff, because there's many reasons for mental illness in differing degrees. I'm a veteran, and I'm very aware of veterans coming back with PTSD and all kinds of different issues. I've been a pastor for 34 years. I have helped so many people with all kinds of mental illness, different issues, counseling them, talking with them, and doing what I can to help. I believe that the church has a responsibility, the police, the government, and also individual organizations like mental health organizations. But what happens is we're working separately. That's why I love what this commission is doing in Independence, because we're working together. How can we as a community bring some solutions? Yes, we can have some solutions legislatively, and I think we need to do all that we can, especially for our veterans, but anybody that's dealing with mental illness. Mental illness has been on the increase for some time. I'm not against medications, giving medication to people, but what I'm really for is finding solutions. What is the cause of this and bringing some real healing to people where we can bring some real healing? So we've got to get the community together, the church community again, the mental illness community, the police, because the police have, they can go out and arrest people and all of that, but the church can actually take care of people, and we can minister to people, and we can pray for people, and we can counsel with people. And the mental health agencies also have their responsibility. So that's what we're doing. And that's what I'm about, is finding real solutions for this problem.
One of the things that, through the course of my daughter's life, we have had to navigate the Department of Health and Senior Services and the Department of Mental Health. And currently in the state of Missouri, a lot of these agencies are not talking to each other. There was a commission that were formed under, believe it or not, Eric Greitens, and then Governor Parson actually dissolved that. And there was only so many social workers available. We saw those numbers decline in, especially before COVID, and there's a huge waiting list. And the problem is, we don't also, sometimes with our disability and our senior community, there's some mental illness that goes through that system with it. And it's a lot of times it's not addressed because it's been put on the back burner. I know that several $1 million of our services got cut from our Missouri state budget that services those communities, and I feel that we are not doing those communities a service. Now, having grown up in the Christian church, and I have found that in some places, the women were not treated the same as men in the ministry, and that women were either disobedient or they were sinning, but it was not addressed as mental illness. And for whatever reason or other, there are certain types of counseling situations. It should be covered by our health insurance. It should be covered under Medicaid. It should be covered under Medicare. That those types of services are what are allowing us to be functioning members of society. So we can throw money at a bad thing, and I understand that that's not always the right thing to do. I know that we can also say that our communities need to work together, but I think we just need to be able to understand that it's not a society problem, it's not a religious problem. Sometimes it's part of our issues when we have our school shootings, that we always want to chalk it up to mental illness, but we need to get at the root of the problems. And I do agree with you that there's sometimes those kinds of issues that are created in our society. There's an epidemic of what they're calling male loneliness. We've seen suicide rates that have gone up for young men, and those things should definitely be addressed in our community and our church. But I think that we also need to be able to have cohesive programs in our state legislature, that they would actually be able to work together with the communities.
Well, we debated up here who was going to go first, and I lost. Because she said a lot of what I wanted to say, because unfortunately we suffer through some mental health issues in my family. And the biggest problem that we come up against is the waiting list. There are not enough people out there servicing the people who have these issues. We don't have any of the hospitals, as many hospitals as we need to help these folks out, including my own family. Now, I do know that we did approve monies for a new hospital up here in Independence, I believe it is. And that was so exciting to me because it's so needed. These people, including my family, need the help. And there's nobody there to help them because those people, the people that are helping have like a whole list of people, of kids and adults that they help every day. It could be 100 people a week that they see, and that there's just not enough time. We need more people. So that's one of the things that we should give thought to. If we're going to do anything, let's try to promote giving people education towards getting their psychiatry, psychologists, counseling degrees, and keep them here in Missouri. Maybe we help them, we tell them go to school, and we will pay off your schooling for you if you spend so many years here in service to Missouri. I think that would be a good solution because we desperately need the people to help. And we desperately need more facilities for these people to go to when they're in desperate need.
Robbie, how do we vote?
Yeah, just a moment. I want to be clear that faith is also important to me, and I am not. I'm not meaning to demean your faith. I think, as I said, faith is important to me, and if that was the takeaway, that's not what I intended to do. I think I think mental health is extremely important. I think it's something that is not being addressed in the way that it should. To another point, $300 million for psychiatric ward hospital too, so we did that as well. But back to that, I think realistically, there are all kinds of ways to treat mental illness, but I think not linking the others is important. As I've said, in the work that I've done, I've seen it all the time in my work.
You can finish the thought.
It's just not long. So in my work as a prosecutor with mental health treatment, in my work as with helping people in that capacity, in my work, I've helped hundreds of, not thousands of people with this type of stuff because I think it is so very important. And I don't think it's a one size fits all. But I do think that it needs to be treated in all the ways that it can, and I think that is needed as well. So thank you.
Now we'll move on to just our closing statement. We have a question that comes from the audience that I want you, if you would like, to kind of address in your closing statement real quickly. What is your stance on right to work? So if people want to address that in your closing statement, that'd be this is everybody. Who goes first?
If I could get around these cords down here.
All right, we'll start right before our closing statement then.
You stood up.
All right.
I'll take it. Right to work, I think, is wrong for Missouri. I think people have shown that. I think people don't want to see right to work here. It's not popular. Lost by 70%. I think that what I like to see, quite frankly, is a strong middle class. And I think part of that is unions. And I've been very supportive of unions over the years. I think that I am a member of Local 42. I'm a retired member of Local 42. My father was union, my grandfather was union. And realistically, it was our climb out of poverty, if I'm being honest. I think if you want a strong middle class, then I think you need to support unions. And I think that this state has shown in all its complexities that, Democrats and Republicans, it's unanimous that people don't want it. And I don't think we need to have it. I don't think we should bring it up. I think we should keep the initiative petition process. Another thing that ties into all of this, because there's an attempt to try to stop that. There's an attempt to try to block it, an attempt to try to make it harder. And I don't believe that's good for Missouri. Thank you.
Robert, do you want to add anything else to the closing statement?
Oh, was that?
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, that was
I thought that was.
we're doing both. Yeah.
We're doing right to work.
Yeah.
Answer the right to work, then do your closing statement.
Yeah.
Jeez, okay, all right. Realistically, I think the main point, I know there's been a little bit of touch on this today, but the legislature is 70% Republican. And that being said, I am fairly moderate in my positions. I'm sure that we're not all going to agree on everything, and that's okay. I don't think any of us in this room are going to agree on everything. But I think that this state, with a 70% Republican supermajority, what are we seeing in this state? We are seeing this state be in the bottom percentile for education, in the bottom percentile for health and well-being, for quality of life, for starting teacher pay. This state is in the bottom of that. And realistically, I don't know if you all pay attention to the legislature, but I can tell you that there's a lot of chaos in the legislature. There's a lot of folks who really just kind of sow chaos. And that's not good for Missouri. That's not good for us. And I think what we need is folks who will not engage in that kind of rhetoric. And when we've got a state that has this, again, 70% Republican supermajority, let's go through all these things. Property taxes, why haven't they fixed it? Crime, why haven't they fixed it? They've had 20 years to fix it. They have a 70% Republican supermajority with a Republican governor. And this is where we are. And I think the smart people will tell you, can I just finish this sentence? The smart people will tell you, realistically, there are too many Republicans because there's too much infighting in Jefferson City. And that's what we need to change. Thank you.
Joe, do you want to address right to work and close the statement?
Thank you. Right to work, our state voted it down twice, and I stand with the voters if that's what they decided. I'm running again to secure our freedoms, our rights and our freedoms, because we're losing them. And as I sat here this evening and listening to Representative Sauls, he sounds very much like a Republican to me. And I'm wondering why he's on the Democrat Party, but he is right that there's chaos in the Senate, and there's infighting, and a lot of things aren't getting accomplished, and it's not because it's the wrong party, it's because we need principled men down there that have a backbone of steel that will not sway to the lobbyist or special interest and do their bidding, but will actually work for the people. And that's what I will commit to do for each one of you, regardless of your party, your ethnicity, or your sexual preference, is to stand and fight for your freedom, to live free, your children to live free, and your grandchildren to live free. I am completely against lying in campaigns. You will not hear me lie about my opponent. I will, however, expose voting records because they're public records. And there's nothing wrong with exposing voting records. And we'll do that. But I am completely against lying. I view lying in campaigns as voter fraud. If you have to lie, you're desperate and you are intentionally causing voter fraud to gain an advantage. I will not do that, and if anybody from my campaign does it, they will hear it and I will apologize for it. Because I don't want anybody working for my campaign lying about the opponent. We will stand on our own merits, we will stand on my own character, and we will run the best race we possibly can, and we'll leave it in the hands of the voters. So I appreciate your time tonight. We've been here for quite a while, so thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Alderman, thank you very much. I know the police department's not here, but I thank them for allowing us to use their building, and thank you. You guys care. We need more citizens that care and get involved and do their civic duty. We need more churches and more pastors to do the very same thing. We've got to get everybody involved because we're losing our freedoms. Thank you very, very much. God bless each one of you.
But I mean, if you wanted to rebut, you can go ahead and do that since you brought your name up.
So, first off, with voting records, as I'm sure Jeff can tell you, some of these bills are hundreds of pages, if not thousands of pages long. And positions that, you know, if you've got 6 things you like, 3 things you dislike, and you vote for the 6, does that mean you're for the 3 that you dislike, or the other way around? I think that realistically, the same could be said. Things taken, if the claim is that things are being taken out of context, and they're certainly doing the same to me. So, I don't like, you know, there are things about politics I like and dislike. I love the idea of working for people to try to make a difference. And the running part, I'm not a huge fan of. I mean, at the end of the day, it's you know, things like this, sometimes it brings out things like this. But I am honest. I have been honest. There may be a difference of opinion on certain things, and that's fine. But I'll just leave it at that.
All right, Jeff, right to work and then closing statement.
Well, man, Joe just took all my words. Listen, right to work, I've always been probably against, even though my party would kill me for that. But I have union members in my family. I also, when I was campaigning, when Amendment 1, I think it was out there, every time I'd see a sign that said vote no against Amendment 1 or vote yes, whatever was against right to work, I would stop by that house. And I would talk to them about the signs that are on my side of my car saying I was a Republican and saying, look, you know what, I'm with you. If you like my message, would you just vote for me in the primary? Because I just want to show my opponent, who happens to be here tonight, thank you very much, good to see you. I just want to show her that I have a whole lot more votes. And, you know, every time I get through with my speech with them, they'd always tell me, they'd laugh. I said, just don't vote for her. She's a good lady, but just don't vote for her. And every time they'd laugh at me and say, we're Republicans. They were union, but they were Republicans. And what I've come to find over my 6 years of doing this on the union side, the majority of the union workers are just like me. It's the upper end and upper management who become the problem. And when they ask me to come to their place to show me all about their training center, and I walk in and I see nothing but Democrat stuff, and I ask them, why do you even invite me here? They said, well, we want to show you what we do. I said, why? Because if I vote for you and then I have to run again, are you going to come out and help me? And we all know what the answer to that is. So for right to work, it doesn't really matter to me. My friends a lot of them are union. What I care about is what the people say, and the people twice have voted that down. But in closing, I have 3 things that I'm working really hard on for the next 2 years. And the first one, obviously, is the property taxes. And I need your help. I need your help to call the leadership to get them to understand how important this is for your kids. We took care of the seniors. Now it's time to take care of everybody else. The secondary piece is something near and dear to my heart, and that's human trafficking and sex trafficking. I've got legislation for the last 3 years, and that legislation will help to not do away with the human trafficking, the traffickers, but to do away with the Johns. Because if we do away with the demand, then why do we need, they won't make the monies that they were looking to make. So those are my top 2 priorities. And then the third one is, as Robert was saying earlier, I also filed the bill to make the Jackson County the Jackson County assessor an elected position, and we will continue to fight that battle as well. So thank you very much.
Well, as far as our right to work, obviously, I agree with the voters. They have voted it down twice. One of the things we wanted to, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in 2017, 2018, when it was first voted down, it was actually the petition, the IP rights, your individual voices that are enshrined in our Constitution. And if you don't like some of the legislation that your elected politicians put out, you have the ability to create a petition and have those signatures put and then have it put on the ballot. That is your right. And when they tried to put it on there the second time, like beating a dead horse, I don't know what they were trying to accomplish, but one of the things we were trying to make sure that we don't keep going around in circles after you guys have already spoken. So that's one of the things that I feel about Amendment 3. There were some things that were done at the very last minute to try and mess with your 380,000 signatures that were turned into Jeff City, and then some of the language was like being messed with. Thankfully, those things, it is up to you to make those votes. You get out there and vote, and you vote your conscience. You don't do it because your dad told you to, or your husband, or your wife, or your neighbor wants you to do it that way. You vote the way that you feel in your heart is the way that it needs to be done. Some of the things that I feel, and again, I know that we've mentioned that, 70% of our current legislature has been the supermajority for 22 years. You guys want to talk about, and you laughed at me earlier, is your life better 4 years ago or is it now? But your legislators here in Missouri are still the same Republicans that you guys have been voting for. If you do want things better, you're going to need to ask for some change. And some of the things I want to make sure that one of the things I stand for is to make sure that we are not trying to overturn your individual voices with the IP process, that you should still be able to challenge the people, not only with your votes, but to challenge your legislators with your petition process. So another thing that I feel is important is that we need to focus on keeping seniors and elderly and our disabled in our homes by expanding those programs, such as self-directed programs, because it does save the state money instead of shipping them off to nursing homes and to mental institutions, which is where some of our group homes have gone after COVID. So more on that later, but it would be a piece of legislation that I would like to introduce able to have a rate study done to show that our folks actually do flourish and have better quality of life when a family member can stay home and take care of them versus having them just go into a nursing home and then that's it for them. So I think our seniors are important and they have a lot of life left and that should be honored.
Thank you, Jennifer. I agree with you on the senior side of things. But initiative petition has been brought up twice tonight. An initiative petition is, we're not trying to stop it. I'm a big fan of changing it. And the reason for it is, do you understand that every time an initiative petition passes, it goes into our state constitution? If you look at the United States Constitution, how many times has the United States Constitution changed? Yep. The bottom line is that the things that get put on IP are not constitutional issues. They're statutory issues the majority of time. And we have two ways to work IP, one constitutional and one statutory. But nobody wants to go to the statutory because they're afraid that the legislature is going to change it down the road. But if it's strong enough, no legislator is going to want to bring it up to try to change, because what would that do to them as far as trying to get voted back in? It's not going to be good. And as far as the legislature being primary Republican for the last 20 years, how long were the Democrats in place before that? Does anybody know? 40 years. So let's not talk about how many years a group has been in play, because we had to live with that for 40 years where they wouldn't even let a Republican talk on the floor. One gentleman actually got up on his desk because he just wanted to introduce somebody. Got up on his desk, waving his arms, and the Speaker of the House would not call on him. That's the treatment that the Republicans got when they had 40 years of Democrat control. We don't do that to the Democrats. We go way overboard to allow them to have that opportunity.
So first, Brandon Ellington, a Democrat, had to do the exact same thing 8 years ago to get recognized to stand on his desk to make sure that he was getting called up. So it does happen. Ideally, what we do is we just don't play the games and we just try to treat everybody with respect and go from there. I will say with regard to the initiative petition process. So first off, there have been various versions of this. There have been versions of this bill that would make it almost impossible to pass an initiative petition. What I mean by that is that's true with requiring a certain percentage of registered voters to vote. So what would happen in that situation is the governor, whether he or she be a Democrat or a Republican, could take the legislation that they don't like, put it on the August ballot, and then ultimately you don't get the percentage of registered voters to vote for it. Even with 100% passage, it would still not become law. And these are kind of some of the laws that we're dealing with initiative petition reform. To Jeff's point.
Couple more seconds.
Okay, so there are, since the creation of the initiative petition, there have been 19 citizen-led initiative petitions that have been added to the Constitution. Everything else was done by the legislature, because we have that ability too. Bingo, for example, that was put on by the legislature. The legislature passed that, and then the people had to vote on it. And to Jeff's point, the legislature does change it. The legislature has. Do you remember Puppy Mills? When we voted that through, Governor Mike Parson was the state senator who changed that and took away that. We've had Clean Missouri and Cleaner Missouri. We've had Medicaid expansion, where the legislature tried to stop funding Medicaid expansion. We've got, I mean, it just, realistically, these are, I guess I have a minute. This is, the initiative petition process is not something that is popular. We've had people come in and testify, and it is like 6 to 100. That's the real 130 or something crazy. And I think that we should let the people have their voice. Thank you.
I have to respond.
Sure.
The legislature didn't change Clean Missouri and Cleaner Missouri. The people did. The people changed that one because, again, it went through the initiative petition process. You had to vote on that. So the legislature didn't change that. This is not to take your vote away. What it's trying to do is keep the outside forces, the outside money coming into Missouri, controlling what you hear on television so that you vote a certain way. And that's what's going on. Whether they want to admit it or not, that's what's happening. And so we've got to change. It doesn't take your vote away. There's still, to change the Constitution, you still get the vote. But to change a law, it's a much lower issue, a much lower standard, and you still get to have your voice. So when he says so many were Missouri resident-led initiative petitions, that's not really true. Those are coming from out of state.
15 seconds. 15
You're
seconds.
fine. You guys aren't even running against each other, right?
The only thing I wanted to say was that Clean Air Missouri was passed out of the House and the Senate. We passed Clean Air, I didn't pass it, but the legislature passed Clean Air Missouri. So it did go to the vote.
It went to the vote of people.
But the legislature is the one that put it.
But that's okay. I mean, that's what you were trying to say. You were trying to say that Clean Missouri, which did the same thing, it went through the process. And Cleaner Missouri got passed by the
I'm
people.
gonna ask that we stop. Thank you. Did
All
you
right.
have something you wanted to add on IP?
No,
or
I was
not?
gonna say, I'm a preacher, can I just take up an offering and close it?
All right, I want to thank all our candidates for coming out tonight and doing this. I think, did really well, I think, and I want to thank everyone for coming out and hope it was a learning experience for everyone.